Teaching learning process has been challenged by today's global pandemic. From face-to-face classes, we have shifted to various learning modalities just to continue the educational process amidst this health crisis. This adjustment was never easy to teachers, learners, parents, and the community as a whole. Home-based learning is a distance learning strategy that the Department of Education implements as a response to the challenge of continuing education amidst pandemic. I am Sir Rodney, a science teacher of Hoopy National High School, and today I'm going to show you the things I do in 1 week lesson of home-based learning, teaching, and assessment process in Science 10. Our school has adopted the printed modular distance learning since the start of distance education. Every week, we, teachers, repeatedly print, bind, and pack the self-learning modules, which are the primary learning materials used by learners. Since last school year, I chose to provide answer sheets to individual learners so that I can save these self-learning modules for future reuse. Together with the printed modules, I also prepared the weekly home learning plan to which learners can refer as to which learning tasks they should accomplish. But despite having the weekly home learning plan, there are still learners who do not perform the given tasks because according to some of them, they do not understand how this will be done. In response to this, I also include specific instructions translated in Tagalog in their answer sheets so they can easily perform the tasks. This is one of the adjustments I do so my learners can cope up with home-based learning. Another adjustment or strategy that I do to reach all learners is identifying the communication platform most applicable to or convenient for them. Lucky I am that more than half of my class can be reached online. If online platform is not applicable, I use text messaging services, or do home visitations depending on their situation. Good evening, grade 10. Tomorrow is our schedule for Science 10. I will meet you tomorrow at 8:30 through our messenger classroom. Please answer what I know and the crossword puzzle before 8:30 so we can check that before we start. Thank you. See you virtually tomorrow. The night before we conduct online discussion, I prepare a PowerPoint presentation based on the weekly home learning plan. In doing so, I highlight the most important concept and put some graphics beside it so they would understand better. We know that this is beyond office hours, but we also know that this is a part of the noble profession where we are in. As is scheduled, every Wednesday, 8:30 in the morning, after they have answered the pre-assessment, we conduct an online class.
So we are already on our fourth week. So I am hoping that you have already received your module 2 so that we can start our class for today. So let me check first kung ilan na tayo dito. So andito na ba si Jan
I
Rafael?
always take note of my learners who attend our online discussion
Andito na ba si Jan Rafael?
to compare it to the template I made.
Si Jade Ian. Dito na si Jade. Okay. Good morning, Ian. Dito na si Rainjin. Dito ba si Rainjin? Okay, dito na din si Rainjin. Si AJ, andito ba si Arvin dyan? Okay, dito na din si AJ. Good morning, AJ. Si Jillian, nandito ba? Okay. Jillian, kasama mo ba si Ayomi? Okay, sige. So, dalawa kayo dyan. And then, andito na din ba si Janggyum? Okay, so andito na din si Janggyum. Si Irish, andito na din? Okay, sige. So, nandito. Hanap pa sila ng signal. But anyway, since we said that we will be starting
Oops!
at 8:30,
Please don't forget to start any class discussion with a prayer. It's one big step in developing them as makadiyos.
Let us first start our class with a prayer. Who can lead the prayer? Pwede ba si Janggyum? Sige, let us pray muna, Janggyum.
Pangalan ng Ama, ng Anak, ng Espiritu Santo. Amen. Panginoon, maraming salamat po sa panahon na ibinigay niyo sa amin ngayong araw. Maraming salamat din po dahil nakadalo kami kahit na may mga bagay na nagpipigil sa amin upang maka-join ngayon sa classroom. Maraming salamat din po sa pagkain ibinigay niyo ngayong araw.
Prior to actual discussion, I take note of their scores in the pre-assessment. These results can be compared with their final assessment result to determine if our discussion was effective.
The pre-assessment part and the crossword puzzle, tama ba ako? Kung hawak ninyo yung weekly home learning plan ninyo, makikita ninyo dun sa unang number, ano ba yung kaunahang dapat na ginawa ninyo according to your weekly home learning plan? Okay, so dapat nasagutan na ninyo yung what I know o yung pre-assessment. Nakapagsagot na ba kayo nun? Okay, sige. So, naka-ilan kayo sa ating pre-assessment? May naka-15 ba? Naka-ilan ka, Irish? 11 lang. Si Ian, naka-ilan? Ian. 11 din. Si Rafael. Sige, anyway, I'll just check your scores mamaya sa GC natin. Kung nakailang kayo dun sa ating pre-assessment. But, we are expecting that at the end of our lesson, kapag nagsagot na kayo ng assessment part, I am hoping that you will increase your scores. Dapat pag kinumpare natin yung inyong scores sa pre-assessment, dapat mas mataas na doon yung makukuha ninyo sa ating final assessment. Okay, sige. So, ang title ng ating second module for this week is about plate boundaries. And for our specific competency, you're supposed to describe the different types of plate boundaries. But before we proceed to our main lesson, let us first have a short recall or a review of our topic last module. Di ba you answered the module 1 for 3 weeks?
Just like in the lesson plan we do during face-to-face setting, I start my discussion with a review.
The first question,
This
what
is
are
to
the
link
layers of
Module
the
1
Earth?
to Module
Ano
2.
nga ba ulit yung layers ng Earth natin? Anybody? Please say your name if you're going to answer ha, kasi hindi ko kayo nakikita sa screen. Sige, for number 1. O, sige, Jangyum.
Inner core, outer core, mantle. Yun po yung nare-recall ko.
Okay, so narinig ko na Jangyum ang outer core, inner core, mantle. Actually, Jangyum lacks another layer. May isa pa. Anybody who can recall? Yes, Irish? Okay. Okay. So again, let us repeat those 4 layers of the Earth. Irish?
Inner core, outer core, mantle, and crust.
Okay, very good. So I hope that the rest of the class are already familiar with these layers of the Earth. Now let's have the second question. Which layer of the Earth makes up the lithosphere? So ito ay na-discuss na din natin last time about lithosphere. Anong layer daw ng Earth ang bumubuo sa lithosphere? Anybody? Sige, Irish again.
The crust and the upper.
Okay, correct. Can you answer in complete sentence? The lithosphere. Okay, very good. So, ang lithosphere po ay binubuo ng upper mantle boundaries.
As I go along my discussion,
Now,
I allow learners
next
to read
paragraph, can you
and
please
explain the text based on how they have understood it.
Jillian, dyan ba si Jillian? Sige na.
The lithosphere is made up of the crust and upper part of the mantle. There are 2 types of crust, the continental crust and the oceanic.
Okay, so thank you, Jillian. So, kagaya ng sanabi natin kanina, the lithosphere is made up of the crust and the upper mantle. But there are 2 types of crust. Ano daw yung dalawang yun? We have the continental crust and the oceanic crust. Let us look at this diagram. Kita nyo ba sa screen yung diagram? So makikita natin dito na ang lithosphere ay binubuo nitong upper mantle, that's the color brown, and the crust, yun yung kulay gray. Now by looking at this diagram, how can you differentiate the continental crust and the oceanic crust? Anybody? Sige, Irish. Base lang sa figure muna, ha?
Yung continental crust po sir ay mas makapal at saka po yung oceanic crust po ay mas manipis pero po denser po siya.
Okay, sige. So, dun muna tayo sa unang sinabi ni Irish. Ang continental crust daw ay mas makapal kaysa sa oceanic crust. Tama ba? Do everybody agree with? Sige, let us try to answer assessment number 1 on your module, which is also
There are
flashed
also
on the
various
screen.
activities
And
in the
please
module
read the first
where I can
question,
perform
and then
formative
you answer.
assessment to
Number 1.
check if they are learning and if they are still on track.
Po sir, ano po?
Okay, sige, Ayumi, number 1.
What plate boundary through lining of 2 plates?
Mhm.
Trans po, transform po.
Okay, let us try to see. Okay, that's correct. When 2 plates are sliding past each other, they are forming the transform fault boundary. Nakuha ba ng lahat? Okay, next. Let's have question number 2. Number 2, Jangyum.
One plate boundary shows the moving apart of 2 plates.
Okay, divergent boundary. Let us try to see. Okay, so that's correct. When two planes are moving apart, they form divergent boundary. Nakuha ba yun ang lahat? Okay, very good. Now you can refer
Before
to
we
the
end,
weekly home learning
I
plan.
clarify how they are going to accomplish their performance task, which is 50% of their
The
grade.
next one is you're going to label your models with convergent boundary, divergent boundary, and transform fault boundary. So they must be properly labeled. Alin sa kanila yung mga boundaries na yan. And then you're also going to label which are the volcanic arcs,
and remind them to do well in the summative assessment, as this will be recorded and comprise the other 50% of their grade.
After you do that, dun sa last part ng inyong weekly home learning plan, ano ang nakalagay? You will answer the assessment. Tama ba? Yes. Sa page 16,
Right after our online class, I send my PowerPoint presentation to our group chat so learners who failed to establish good internet connection during our discussion can still go over my slides. I also send them video clips that they can watch to better understand the lesson. They can also browse online links. Once I have retrieved their answer sheets, it's time to check. When I grade a performance task, I opt not to look at the name first, so I will not be subjective and will just base my score in the rubrics. Once I'm done checking, of course, it's time to record. To track my learners' progress, I find graphs as helpful tool. Through it, I can determine who stays on track and who needs to be tapped. So far, this graph seems acceptable for me since 90% of the class either retained or increased their scores. Reporting is another essential step in home-based learning. I establish communication with parents so they can also track how their children progress. I also use this to provide feedback to my learners' performance. Here are some of our conversations showing feedbacks.
Truly, we all have adjusted to this new normal in education, be it in learning, teaching, or assessment process. This may seem so challenging to all of us, teachers and parents, but if only we think of what lies ahead after this pandemic, we all would agree that it's better to be flexible than to ruin our learners' future.